When Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, many questioned if Apple could thrive without him. But one man, quiet and steady, stepped into that impossible spotlight: Tim Cook. He wasn't the visionary showman Jobs was, yet he brought a new kind of leadership, one rooted in precision, calm, and relentless execution. Behind the scenes, Cook had long been Apple's backbone. Now he had to be its soul. Before leading Apple, Tim Cook mastered its lifeblood: operations. He didn't design iPhones, he made sure they reached millions flawlessly. In the late 90s, Apple was bleeding money. Jobs brought Cook in to fix what others couldn't: the chaos behind the curtain. Within months, Cook slashed inventory, streamlined suppliers, and turned Apple's supply chain into a global machine. That's when the quiet operator became the company's hidden engine. Tim Cook didn't try to be Steve Jobs, and that was his genius. Instead of grand unveilings and unpredictable flair, Cook led with quiet authority. He built a culture of stability, a company that could thrive without chaos. Under his guidance, Apple didn't just survive, it grew into the world's most valuable brand. Tim Cook's leadership wasn't loud, but it echoed through every Apple keynote, product, and decision. In 2014, Tim Cook faced his first defining moment: the launch of Apple Watch. Skeptics called it a gimmick, a product Jobs would have never approved. But Cook believed in pushing Apple beyond the iPhone. He bet on health, design, and wearables, and doubled down on user privacy. The Apple Watch wasn't an instant hit, but Cook was playing the long game. And slowly, the world began to understand his vision. While Silicon Valley chased user data, Tim Cook made a bold stand. Privacy is a fundamental human right. Unlike rivals, Apple didn't sell ads based on personal behavior. Cook's vision was clear: trust would be Apple's biggest innovation. He took on Facebook and Google, not with words but with policies that reshaped the industry. In a world of surveillance capitalism, Cook offered something radical: restraint. Critics claimed Apple stopped innovating after Jobs. But under Tim Cook, innovation didn't vanish, it evolved. Apple began to perfect ecosystems, not just products. From the M1 chip to seamless device integration. Cook's Apple focused on experience, how everything just worked. It wasn't flashy magic, but quiet brilliance, and it set Apple apart in ways no keynote ever could. In 2016, Apple did something bold: it removed the headphone jack. The backlash was instant: it's arrogance, critics shouted. But behind the scenes, Tim Cook saw farther. He knew Apple needed to push wireless forward, even if it meant short-term pain. The move paved the way for AirPods, mocked at first, now iconic. Sometimes leadership means enduring criticism, to stay ahead of the curve. While others focused only on profits, Tim Cook turned Apple toward the planet. He pledged carbon neutrality across Apple's entire supply chain. Under his leadership, Apple built massive solar farms, recycled rare materials, and redesigned packaging. This wasn't just PR, it was Cook's belief that innovation must include responsibility. Apple became a rare tech giant with climate goals, not just product launches. Tim Cook wasn't just shaping technology, he was shaping values. In an industry often silent, Cook spoke out on LGBTQ+ rights, racial justice, and equality. As the first openly gay Fortune 500 CEO, his presence alone was powerful. But he didn't stop there, he used his platform to demand more from Silicon Valley. For Cook, leadership meant showing up, even when it was uncomfortable. In 2020, Tim Cook shocked the industry by announcing Apple's split from Intel. It wasn't just a tech decision, it was a power move. Apple would now design its own chips, starting with the M1. Skeptics called it risky, but the results were undeniable. Faster, cooler, more efficient, the M1 redefined laptops overnight. Cook had gambled billions, and once again, Apple changed the game. Under Cook, Apple began preparing for life beyond the iPhone. He expanded into services: Apple Music, TV+, Fitness+, iCloud, and more. This pivot wasn't just about profit, it was about ecosystem lock-in. Cook knew that as hardware matured, recurring revenue would define Apple's future. And today, Apple earns billions monthly, not just from what it sells, but from how people live inside its world. Tim Cook's superpower: timing. He didn't rush products to market, he released them when they were truly ready. Years after Google Glass failed, Cook quietly developed Apple Vision Pro behind the scenes. Not just a headset, but a reimagining of interaction itself. When he finally revealed it, it wasn't hype, it was execution. Cook's patience wasn't hesitation, it was strategy in disguise. When COVID-19 hit, global supply chains collapsed overnight. For most companies, it was chaos, but Apple moved with precision. Under Tim Cook's leadership, Apple not only stabilized operations, it led the tech world's response. From face shields to donations and remote learning tools, Apple acted fast. Cook didn't just protect the company, he protected people. In crisis, his calm wasn't just leadership, it was reassurance. Tim Cook is worth over $1 billion, but you won't see him flaunting it. No yachts, no mansions on magazine covers, no social media flex. Instead, he's pledged to give away nearly all his fortune. His lifestyle mirrors his leadership: simple, deliberate, impact-driven. In a world obsessed with noise, Tim Cook leads by example, proving influence doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just shows up and works. Tim Cook may not have founded Apple, but he's redefined what it means to lead it. His era wasn't about reinvention. It was about refinement, resilience, and responsibility. He turned Apple into a global force for innovation and ethics. As Cook looks ahead, his greatest success might not be any single product, but the system he built, one designed to outlast him. Now whispers are growing: who will lead Apple after Tim Cook? He's turning 65 soon, and succession planning is underway. Some point to Jeff Williams, Apple's COO, others to rising internal stars. But Cook isn't rushing. Like every product launch, he wants the timing and the person to be right. Because for Cook, the legacy isn't just Apple's past. It's ensuring someone worthy shapes its future. Tim Cook never asked to be a celebrity, and yet he became a symbol. Not of showmanship, but of stewardship. He taught the world that leadership isn't about charisma. It's about consistency, values, and delivering year after year. Cook didn't fill Steve Jobs' shoes. He built a different path, one quieter but just as lasting. Tim Cook's genius isn't loud innovation, it's measured evolution. Each decision, each launch, each pivot, carefully timed and deeply considered. He may not stir standing ovations like Jobs did, but he commands quiet respect. Under his watch, Apple became more than a tech company. It became a system of trust, values, and long-term vision, shaped by a man who believes in the power of steady hands. When Tim Cook took the helm, many feared Apple would lose its soul. But instead of replacing Jobs, he reimagined what Apple could be. He focused on values, privacy, sustainability, inclusion, and turned them into strategy. Today, Apple isn't just about beautiful products. It's about what those products stand for. And that shift, it began the day a quiet operations guy said yes to the impossible job. Tim Cook never chased attention, it found him. A reluctant icon forged not by ego, but by endurance. He led Apple through grief, doubt, and unprecedented growth. And through it all, he stayed exactly who he was. Disciplined, private, relentlessly focused. In a world of noise, Cook proved that quiet leadership might just echo the loudest. Tim Cook helped shift Apple's mission from selling products to shaping culture. iPhones became tools for creativity. Apple Watch became a gateway to health. AirPods became cultural symbols. And behind it all was a leader who understood that meaning scales better than features. For Cook, Apple's greatest innovation wasn't hardware, it was making people feel something every time they used it. For Tim Cook, success was never just market share or stock price. It was how Apple made lives better, more connected, more private, more human. He redefined what it means to win in tech. Not by dominating the news cycle, but by building a company people could trust. And in doing so, he proved something rare. that you can be both a titan of industry and a guardian of values. Every time Tim Cook steps on stage, one thing glows behind him, that bitten apple. It's more than a logo, it's pressure, legacy, and expectation. Yet Cook never let it weigh him down. He carried it with steadiness, never pretending to be Jobs, never chasing applause. Just doing the work every day, ensuring that the symbol behind him always meant something in front of the world. Tim Cook didn't build his legacy through noise, he built it through trust. Trust from users, trust from teams, trust from a world watching quietly. He proved you don't have to be first or the loudest, just the most consistent. In an era of disruption, he became a master of discipline. And maybe that's the final lesson. True leadership isn't in the spotlight, it's in the follow-through. As Cook edges toward retirement, he isn't slowing down, he's setting the stage. From nurturing internal talent to quietly expanding into health, AR, and AI. Apple's future is being built, not just for the next quarter, but the next generation. And true to form, he's not making noise about it. Because that's how Tim Cook leads, not with exit plans, but with blueprints. There will be no grand farewell, no emotional curtain call. When Tim Cook steps away, it'll be just like his leadership, quiet, prepared, and complete. No drama, just direction. His legacy won't be a statue or a speech. It'll be in every device, every policy, every principle Apple stands on. Because the best kind of legacy is one that doesn't need reminding. Tim Cook's journey wasn't defined by invention, but by intention. He didn't chase revolutions, he built reliability. Every system, every product, every culture shift at Apple carried his fingerprint. And though he rarely sought praise, his decisions shaped billions of lives. In a world hungry for bold moves, Cook taught us something deeper. That lasting impact often comes not from noise, but from discipline. We often measure leaders by what they start. But Tim Cook will be remembered for what he sustained. He didn't launch Apple, he made it last. Through pressure, loss, criticism, and change, he held the line. And in doing so, he taught a rare truth. Sometimes greatness doesn't begin things. It preserves them with grace. One day, Tim Cook will walk on stage for the last time. There may be applause, maybe even tears. But he won't make it about him. He'll unveil one last product, say thank you, and step quietly into history. Because in the end, the real keynote wasn't what he presented. It was how he showed up year after year with humility, purpose, and quiet power. Tim Cook's chapter may close, but his influence will keep unfolding in devices we hold, in values we trust, in the silence of steady leadership. He reminded the world that power can be quiet. That vision doesn't always need a spotlight. And as the next leader takes the stage, one thing is certain. Apple won't just remember Tim Cook, it will continue to reflect him. Tim Cook's journey proves that quiet minds can shape loud legacies. And he's not alone, every tech icon has a story you haven't heard. If you're curious about the leaders behind the screens, the failures before the fame, and the decisions that changed everything, then subscribe now, because this is just the beginning. Discover the minds behind tech giants, one story at a time.